Election Day is Tuesday, November 6th, and CMU Public Broadcasting again brings you Meet the Candidates, the election year series that gives you the chance to meet those seeking state and national office.
Support of WCMU is provided by Flint Institute of Arts, presenting Drawing Together International Cartoons. The exhibition features 300 cartoons from the Iden-Doan Foundation International Competition and runs through December 30th. FlintArts.org.
Hello and welcome again to this edition of Meet the Candidates. I'm David Nicholas, and this time we welcome Representative Phil Potvin. He is the Republican from Michigan's 102nd District, and he is seeking re-election to a second term for that office. Representative, thanks very much for being with us today.
Oh, David, you're welcome. My pleasure to be here.
As our title implies, Meet the Candidates, a chance for you, even as an incumbent in this race, to get folks reacquainted with a little bit of your background and the experience that you bring to this race. We'll do that in the first couple of minutes here.
Okay. Very good. Well, I was born in Alpena but raised in Cadillac. My parents had Western Concrete Products Company, a longtime supplier of the campus right here with block and brick for many, many years, as well as the stadium. So I'm very familiar with Central Michigan. Also, Central is my master's degree in marketing and management, an MBA. My bachelor's degree came from Albion College, a graduate of Cadillac High School, as is my wife Jan, and we've been married for 45 years. We have 4 married grandchildren, or more married children, excuse me, and 8 grandchildren, all living in the state of Michigan, which I'm very proud of. And as I get with my legislative colleagues, there aren't many of us like that. So I stand very proud, and they're all working in Michigan, which is wonderful.
As an incumbent in this race, what would you identify as the primary issues as you see them, and do some of these apply directly to what you would say you've achieved in your first term, things that you would point to that you've done legislatively to work actively on those issues?
Well, it really is a continuation of what I started with 3 years ago when I began to run for the 102nd, Dave, and that is jobs. Jobs in Michigan are so important. You know, if you think back just a minute, 2 years ago, where were we? Wow, 14% unemployment plus, one of the top. Today, where are we? Gee, 9.4%. Phenomenal change. There have been some good things that took place, and I was part of that in that 96 legislature these past 2 years. One of those things was the removal of the Michigan business tax. Everyone thinks, well, that was for the big corporations. In reality, the big corporations have all their tax credits, and they will for many years to come. So they don't even apply here. What it really applies is to our small and middle-sized companies, all of the non-C corporations, mainly the family businesses. And it's time that we began, and we already are beginning, to refill those stores that went vacant back in 07, 08, 09, and even 10. It's really exciting to see the change that's taking place. So jobs, I think, is still our #1 priority as we move forward. Now, the big challenge we had in 11 was the fact that Michigan was underwater. Our budget was underwater. We were supposed to have a balanced budget. We did not have. Governor Snyder came in, and as an accountant, he said, whoa, we're going to balance this budget. And we did. But we asked every department, that's 19 of them in the state of Michigan, to help us out. Some cooperated, others, we just had to do it. And we did. We tightened our belt. We lowered the budget for the state in 11 and 12, and we filled in that $1.5 billion deficit that we had. Filled it in. The exciting thing for me coming up, Dave, is that starting Monday, October 1st, the new budget's in place, the 12-13 budget. What have we done? Those areas that we cut, especially our public schools, we've increased. We increased our public schools this year $300 million. That's 1.6% over what it was last year. I sit on the school funding as well as education appropriation committees. Very pleased to be a part of that vote very actively, moving forward for our schools. Very important other piece. Another challenge that we have is that we seem to have gotten hung up on the fact that everyone has to go to college, and that just is not true. And so I've been working hard to work with the education department, with Superintendent Flanagan, to say, hey, let's open up the choice a little bit here, choice of curriculum in particular, and let's work with our intermediate school districts. Let's work with our technical centers. Let's afford these people who don't want to go to college the opportunity to have a trade, to have a skill, so that when they leave high school, they become a good employee
and would
within
you
the
point
state
to
of
a
Michigan.
specific bill or package of legislation on that front that is in play now, or would that be something that you would set as a goal if elected to a second
Well,
term?
it already is in play. Representative Joel Johnson from the 97th District in Clare has a bill that specifically does that. What I went after talking to my superintendents, Dave, was what are areas that you're having problems with the dollars where they are and whatnot? And first thing that came out is, hey, the mandate for 2 years of foreign language. Wow, a mandate. The other mandate is a mandate for Algebra 2. Is that necessary? And mandate it for everyone? Excuse me. The answer is absolutely not. I have a specific bill that removes both of those mandates and allows then the choice for our children. And it plays right in with Representative Johnson's bill, as well as Representative Eric Eric from the Kalamazoo area comes in and has another bill, Eric Nesbitt, that complements the two of our bills. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. The other thing that we were able to do, and I'm excited about, is we got some added dollars to the intermediate school districts, specifically to do this. But along with the added dollars for those people, we put added dollars in for our Great Start programs. Again, wonderful thing that is really working. And I do like the way that our governor has talked about a P20 instead of a K-12. Because in reality, we're starting our kids earlier in school. We're trying to give them more skills earlier in life. And while we're doing that, we need to be taking care of them at the same time. And that's exactly what we're aiming to do and beginning to do now with this 12-13 budget that's now in place.
Post-November is going to be, regardless of the makeup of the legislative bodies, that lame duck session. Is there anything that is there right now that you, as a specific sponsor or supporter of a bill, hope to see get accomplished in that before those bills would then go off the table at the end of the year, and we would be resetting for 2013?
Well, those three bills that I talked about, with the intermediate school districts being the leader of the pack at that particular point, are three that we're really pushing hard to do. They're sitting right now in Representative Lyons' committee, the Education Committee, and they've already had hearings on it. It's a matter of taking a vote. Let's get them moving. That's
if
exactly
not,
what
and
we're
if
hoping.
reelected, would those be among the first that you would reintroduce?
Absolutely. Just way too important not to give our children that opportunity, give them that choice.
What would be a primary goal on whether it be the economy, education, or other issues that you would identify that if elected to a second term, you would set as a primary goal for a next legislative session?
Well, education is right there. We've just talked about that and where we'll be going if we don't complete this piece. But the other thing is then to continue that, to continue to find the funding. The other thing is there's such a difference between our schools here in rural Michigan and where we are at about $7,000 per student versus a lot of our urban schools where you're upwards of $8, $10, $12, even as high as $14,000. This has got to be changed. We need to alter this so that our children are receiving a much closer dollar amount, and we'll be working on that in both the education as well as the school funding committees. Right now it's being headed by Bill Rogers, who's doing a great job, and I anticipate that Bill will be back and will be chairman as we start the 97th legislature next year.
Some 10 years ago, the issue was, in fact, it became a major point in the campaign, the race for governor, was the idea that we were not going to tweak, we were not going to touch Proposal A. To talk about that funding issue, would that be something that you or other lawmakers have talked about, that we have reached another point where we need to look at reformatting, readjusting, perhaps starting all over with a school funding mechanism that would be separate from what we've known since the mid-90s?
Very true, Dave, and that's exactly what we've started already and we'll really get into in the next session. Yes, very excited about that, because it's the right thing to do. You know, our property values have changed so much since '07, and it really isn't what we want it to be. And so we need to bring it up to today to 2012-13.
You talked about the credits, the lifting of the Michigan business tax and the reformatting of that. When it comes to the economic front, job development front, other things that you would point to, again, specific legislation that you were either author of or supporter of in the first term, or things that you would set as a primary goal if elected to a second term?
Well, as a first termer, I've been honored to be the chairman of the Michigan Agriculture Department as well as Rural Development Appropriations Subcommittee. And that's given us a real opportunity. Agriculture was beaten down badly the previous 8 years. We've since grown agriculture again, but in that growth we're also working with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation to expand the opportunities for rural Michigan. But in particular, our governor is driving a point, and we're right there with him, as far as let's talk about ag processing here. Let's talk about things we can do and bring back to the state of Michigan, and we're right in the middle of that. So honored because in the 102nd District, Yoplait just opened up a milk-producing plant this spring. And that brought in some new jobs, but it also means milk production right there. And in light of the fact that Liberty Dairy is looking to close down part of their facility and move, this at least keeps part of that right there in that Everett-Reed City area. So specifically with the 102nd, very involved in that, very involved in making that happen. I've been working with John Woodworth, the manager at Yoplait, to continue to make sure this happens. And I also had Keith Cray, who was the director of agriculture at that time, at that plant when it was approved and opened. Very proud to have that happen. And these are quiet things that are done in the background, but we get the job done.
In our last couple of moments, then, we like to give everyone who's either seeking re-election or challenging for a seat the chance to sum up the things somewhat that have come about in these conversations, but the chance for you to leave that last message with the voters as to why you're hoping they'll cast their vote for you.
Well, my one bill last year, Dave, I'm very proud of, was the anti-bullying bill. And it had been on the docket for 10 years. And I was able to, working with both sides, Republicans and Democrats, didn't matter. We made it a personal issue. The governor made it a personal issue, and it became law in December. Schools now have to have not only a policy, but they have to have an administrator in charge of that policy to make sure that our schools are safe, to make sure that our students are safe, and that they have a good place to educate themselves and to learn. And that, for me, was by far my biggest step. But it came in a bipartisan way, not from one party or the other, but together, and with our governor. That three-legged stool really was working, and with the Senate also, and very proud of that. And I want to continue that type of a reach out. I sit right now in the Democratic half of the House because we have 64 Republicans, 46 Democrats at this time. And so each one of them are my friends. And as I look back at that bill, ironically, I had more Democrats as co-sponsors than I had Republicans. And I'm very proud to be able to reach out and, again, represent my district. Did the very same thing when it came down to charter schools and voting on that. The governor personally called me into his office, say, Phil, where are you on this? And I said, Governor, let me tell you what I know. My Cadillac system, we have some choices. And you and I both know, coming out of business, that 3 is the ideal number of choices, correct? And he nodded and said, absolutely, Phil. And I said, well, in Cadillac, we right now already have 6 choices. And I thought, Governor, that we were here to talk about quality of schools, not quantity. And I want you to know, one size does not fit all. I will be a no vote. Merry Christmas. That was last December.
Well, for all the issues we've had a chance to talk about, for the goals that you would set if elected to a second term, we appreciate the time today, and thanks very much for taking the opportunity to be with us.
Well, you're so very welcome, and I thank you for this opportunity, and please, please remember to vote November 6th, if not earlier, as an absentee voter. Your vote is so important to America, because we do live in America, and God bless America.
We echo those sentiments as always at the end of these programs as well, urging you to get out and exercise your right to vote on Tuesday, November 6th. A reminder, too, that all of our segments here will be posted to our website. You can find all the details there, along with the full television schedule for all of our programs at WCMU.org. Our guest has been Representative Phil Potvin, Republican from Michigan's 102nd District, seeking re-election to a second term. For all of us here at Meet the Candidates, I'm David Nicholas. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for joining us for Meet the Candidates. CMU Public Broadcasting invited both major party candidates for this office to participate in this series.
Hello and welcome again to this edition of Meet the Candidates. I'm David Nicholas. We welcome this time Brendan Maturen. He is the Democratic candidate for Michigan's 102nd House District race in this campaign of 2012. Brendan, thanks for taking the time to be with us and welcome.
Thank you, David. It's my pleasure to be here.
We always give the first few moments to our guests as a chance to introduce themselves or reintroduce themselves, whatever the case may be, to the voters of 102. So we give you that chance to tell us a little bit about you, your background, and experience you bring to the campaign.
Sure. I'm an attorney. I've been an attorney since 1995. This is my first time running for office. I've never run before. I did consider running for a prosecuting attorney one time several years ago. But I didn't end up doing it. I have two kids who are in the public schools in Morley-Stanwood. I have a daughter who's in 7th grade and a son who's a sophomore. My wife is Dr. Lori Reed is her name. She's a family physician in Lakeview. And I think the main reason that I decided to run this time, to kind of get off the sidelines, if you will, is because of education in public schools in Michigan. I've watched the Morley-Stanwood schools and of course the schools throughout our district lose funding and resources and have to make painful cuts to their programs and increase their class sizes, et cetera, over the last several years. And so I became really concerned about what was happening in my kids' schools. And I want them to be able to compete for, when they get to college, compete with students from downstate and of course compete with students around the world. We're now in a global 21st century economy. So that's really what got me involved in this race. And I'd like to be a voice for the people in my district.
We'll focus a little bit more closely on some of the specifics that you'd like to bring to the education issue in just a moment. But the district itself, District 102, with all of our districts have been redrawn to one extent or another after the 2010 census. Give folks that are joining us a sense of the district itself, the map, the counties, townships, and so forth that make up District 102.
It is all of Mecosta County. It is roughly the western half of Osceola County, 7 townships in western Osceola County, and I can't remember all the names of all 7 townships off the top of my head. It's basically the 131 corridor from Reed City up through Leroy and Tustin and a few townships east of there. And then it's all of Wexford County, which of course includes Cadillac and Manton up to Buckley and Music and over to Harrietta.
Then, as you have traveled that district, obviously you said what got you involved in wanting to run in the first place was the education issue. That, along with what other issues are you identifying as the prime issues of the campaign, or that the voters are telling you are their main issues of this campaign?
Well, I think the economy has been an ongoing concern, of course, for several years. Our incumbent representative, Phil Potvin, he likes to talk about unemployment being 8.5% or 9% in Michigan, and he doesn't seem to recognize or want to acknowledge that actually in our area it's significantly higher. In Wexford County, I believe it's about 12.5%. So certainly jobs and the economy are a primary concern. Other things, what's been going on in Michigan state government for the last couple of years. Some things that have gone on in the House of Representatives that I don't think have been dealt with appropriately. The situation concerning the Speaker of the House, Chase Bolger. I think there's a lot of room for improvement in our state government, and I think we need to work on the state government to make it more accountable to the people that it's supposed to represent, the people that pay for it, to make it more truly representative, and to make it, frankly, more principled.
The way issues are handled, or the way information is shared with the public, what would be some of the specific changes you would want to bring when you look at that issue as you've identified it as the accountability question?
Well, you know, another reason, in addition to the education issue, another reason that I decided to run is that Mr. Potvin has been telling everyone for the last 2 years that the governor's his boss, and he has to do what the boss tells him to do. And for whatever reason, he doesn't seem to understand that his constituents are supposed to be his boss, and he's supposed to be thinking about not what the governor wants, but what we, the people of his district, need, and what's going to improve the quality of life in our district. So, you know, it's just a question of the quality of representation that we've been receiving, and I think we need a representative who is going to maintain open lines of communication with the people of the district, to listen to their concerns and their needs and their ideas, you know, and respond to their emails, respond to their phone calls, be available to them when they have something to share. You know, I'm not, like I mentioned, I'm an attorney. I'm not an expert in everything. You know, so if there's an issue, for instance, concerning small businesses in my community, I want to have open lines of communication with, say, the Chamber of Commerce, the local small business owners. If there's an agricultural issue, I will be talking to the farmers about that, you know, saying, what do you think about this? Is this going to help farmers in our district? Is it going to hurt farmers in our district? What can we do to improve this legislation? And that's true across the board. You know, in terms of education, I'll be talking to teachers, school board members and administrators, working people who work in the factories in our district. I think that's absolutely critical for a representative to have that ongoing open communication with the people he represents.
Well, while you've been on the campaign trail, what are they telling you? Because you noted the statewide unemployment rate versus specifically what you're seeing in portions of our district-wide in 102 being at a higher rate. So those smaller business owners and those other constituent groups, what are they telling you or suggesting to you or in that dialogue as to some of the things specifically that you would want to do to address those concerns, that higher level of unemployment in the 102nd, should you be elected?
Well, you know, unfortunately, one of the things that's happened over the last 2 years under the guise of so-called shared sacrifice and tax reform is that the state government has raised our income taxes. They've also imposed a new tax on people's pensions, retirement income, and you just can't have a vibrant economy if you don't have consumers with money in their pockets to spend at their local businesses. So we need to, you know, right now they're talking about personal property tax reform. I think if Michigan can afford another tax cut, we need to think about cutting our income taxes so that we have more money in our pockets. The people of my district need money in their pockets to make ends meet. The businesses in my district need people to have money in their pockets to spend at those businesses in order to sustain those businesses and for those businesses to grow over the long term.
And of course, you focused very much on the issue of education. School funding has come up in some of our prior discussions, challenges with districts, especially the further north we get with being able to afford busing when we look at per pupil funding and how that's spread across. So those are at least some of the points that have come out. So obviously we would be asking you, what are they specifically telling you in the 102nd district is the question about the schools, how they're paid for, the structure in the classroom, what are the concerns as the voters are telling you and as you see them as a candidate for this office? Well,
you know, each school district in my legislative district has dealt with these cuts differently. The state cut per pupil school funding by $470 per pupil. They subsequently restored $120 of that funding, but there has been a net loss of $350 per pupil to each of the school districts, and each of the school boards in those districts has dealt with those cuts differently, you know, according to the needs and the priorities in their individual districts. So, for instance, in the Chippewa Hills district, they eliminated an orchestra program that was very popular, which they've had for over 40 years. and a lot of people are very unhappy about that. In my kids' district, the Morley-Stanwood district, they chose to close 2 of their school buildings, both of the elementary schools. So the village of Stanwood and the village of Morley now no longer have an elementary school, and they moved all of those students into the middle school building and then moved all the middle school students over into the high school building. So you now have the high school building accommodating both the high school and the middle school, essentially. And of course, it was designed to just be a high school. In Big Rapids, the school district, they have chosen to, rather than cut programs, to increase their class sizes, and now you have classes in the Big Rapids schools of up to 35 kids in a classroom, which I don't specifically know if the elementary school numbers are that high, but when you have, you know, the upper 20s or 30 kids in a first grade class, and they've also had to eliminate some of the paraprofessionals, it's very difficult for a teacher to teach 30 first graders and make sure they all learn how to read and all learn their basic math skills when you have kids at all different learning abilities, learning styles, and, you know, kids with learning disabilities and behavior problems and things of that nature. So it's become very challenging for our teachers to do their job.
Very prime then to the concerns that every guest has brought to these conversations has been economy and education. Other issues in our last couple of minutes here, if there are others that have come to your attention as a candidate traveling through the district that the voters are telling you, outside of those 2 very big prime issues, other things that they are saying are the concerns and issues as they see them.
Well, a lot of people ask about the new bridge between Detroit and Windsor. And I think, unfortunately, there's been a lot of misinformation about that situation. But basically, what you've got is a billionaire, Maturen, who is basically has used his vast financial resources to hijack the constitutional ballot process to get a constitutional ballot, a constitutional amendment on the ballot to protect his monopoly in the existing bridge. And so but he's also spent a lot of money on ads that are frankly lies about that situation, to distort that situation. And really, this is a project that Governor Granholm supported, Governor Snyder supports it, the U.S. Secretary of Transportation supports it, the Canadian Prime Minister. And it's a project that's going to create jobs not only in the construction of the bridge, but due to the increased trade between Canada and Michigan, it's going to create jobs all over Michigan. And unfortunately, Maturen has also basically paid off the legislature, the current legislature, to oppose this project and try to block it, to the point where Phil Potvin has been saying that the bridge is unnecessary. And frankly, when we're talking about a project that's going to increase trade and make commerce between our country and Canada and our state and Canada more efficient and expand trade and create jobs, I can't see how it's unnecessary, especially when under the current arrangement, Michigan does not have to pay for that bridge. So I've heard a lot about that.
If we were to take then that and the others that we've had a chance to discuss and sum it all up in a final 30 seconds, what would be the message you would want to bring to the voters, leave before them as you ask for their vote? What would be that final message you'd want the voters to have?
The message I would like the voters to have is that when I'm in Lansing, I'm going to make voting decisions based upon what is best for our district, and I'm not going to look at a bill in terms of, well, is this a Republican proposal, is this a Democratic proposal? I'm going to look at it in terms of, is this going to improve the quality of life in our district? And I'm going to be talking to the people in our district about that and what they think about it and what we can do to improve things. So I think people are tired of partisan agendas and partisan ideology. We need a legislator who is interested in pragmatic solutions to the problems that we face, and that's what I'm about.
Well, we appreciate your time, especially speaking to the specific issues and to the voters themselves. Thank you for joining us, and good luck with the rest of the campaign.
Thank you, David.
Thank you for joining us as well. Once again here for Meet the Candidates, we've been joined by Brendan Maturen, the Democratic candidate in Michigan's 102nd State House District. Segments here also on our website at WCMU.org, and we urge all of you to go out and exercise your right to vote on Tuesday, November 6th.
This has been Meet the Candidates, a production of CMU Public Broadcasting. Both major party candidates were invited to participate in this series. For a complete listing of the air dates and times for this series, or to watch or listen to this program again, go to our website, wcmu.org.
Support of WCMU is provided by Flint Institute of Arts, presenting Drawing Together International Cartoons. The exhibition features 300 cartoons from the Doan Foundation International Competition and runs through December 30th. FlintArts.org.